The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was already awake, nursing my second cup of coffee, and watching the Toronto snow fall outside my kitchen window. When I saw my brother Glenn's name on the screen, my gut tightened. Douglas, his voice had that false solemnity that always put me on edge. I have some difficult news. Mom passed away last night, peacefully, in her sleep.
I set down my mug, my hands suddenly unsteady. What? When? I was literally planning to visit her today. The funeral is Friday, he continued, cutting me off like he was reading a script. His tone shifted, becoming cold and businesslike. I've already made the arrangements. Oh, and Douglas, about Mom's estate. The will is obvious. Everything goes to me. The house, the cottage in Muskoka, the investments, all of it. You get nothing. Don't even think about contesting it. Then he hung up. I stood there in the silence of my kitchen, staring at the phone in disbelief. My mother was gone, just like the Tond Glenn's first priority wasn't grief, it was a threat. Something was very, very wrong. Before we go further, I want to know who's out there with me. Drop a comment with your city and your country. I need to know this story is reaching people who still believe in family over greed. My name is Douglas Harrison. I'm 64, a retired civil engineer. My wife, Catherine, passed away 3 years ago, leaving me with our daughter, Emma, who's a marine biologist out in Vancouver. After Catherine died, my mother, Helen, was my rock. Glenn is 4 years younger than me. Growing up, we were close hockey in the North York driveway, the whole bit. But as adults, we drifted. Glenn was a real estate agent, always chasing the next big deal, always stretching himself thin. There were whispers at family dinners about investments gone south, and his wife, Patricia, working double shifts as a nurse just to keep their heads above water. Mom was 85, but she'd been sharp as a tack her whole life, a retired teacher who could beat anyone at Scrabble and recite poetry by heart. She lived independently until about 9 months ago, when Glenn convinced her she needed extra help. He persuaded her to give him power of attorney. He was her baby boy, after all. That's when the light went out. Within weeks of Glenn getting control, Mom was suddenly diagnosed with severe dementia. Glenn moved her into Maple Grove Care Center, claiming she couldn't live alone. When I visited, I was horrified. My vibrant, witty mother sat there staring vacantly. She didn't recognize me. I'd asked her doctor, Dr. James Whitmore. She was fine 2 months ago. Dementia can be sudden at her age, he said smoothly, but it didn't sit right. I visited her 3 times a week anyway, holding her hand even when she was a stranger to me. Now standing in my kitchen with Glenn's threat ringing in my ears, I realized what I'd been too blind to see. This wasn't about her health, it was about her house. I called Maple Grove immediately. "I'm calling about Helen Harrison," I said. "I just heard she passed away last night." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison, but I don't have a record of that. Let me check her room." My heart started hammering against my ribs. A few minutes later, the nurse came back. "Sir, your mother is fine. She's having breakfast right now. Is there some confusion?" I sat down heavily. The air left my lungs. "Can you do me a favor? Don't tell anyone," I called, "especially not my brother." I hung up and dialed Emma. She answered on the 3rd ring, sounding worried. "Dad, it's barely 7 a.m. there. What's wrong?" "Your uncle just told me Grandma died," I whispered. "But she didn't. She's alive, Emma. I think Glenn is trying to steal her life." There was a chilling silence on the other end. "Dad, that's elder abuse. That's fraud. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I told Emma, "but I need to find out fast." He said the funeral is Friday. That's 3 days. After I hung up, I spent the morning turning my kitchen into a war room. First, I called Robert Chen, a lawyer who's as sharp as they come. I laid it all out. Douglas, Robert said. If Glenn has power of attorney and is faking her condition to drain her accounts, we're looking at serious criminal charges. But you need evidence. Ironclad, bulletproof evidence. By afternoon, I'd hired Sarah Mitchell, a private investigator who looked like she could find a needle in a haystack during a hurricane. How long has he had PWA? She asked, her pen flying across her notepad. 9 months, I said. Right after Mom supposedly developed dementia. Before that, she was volunteering, playing bridge, living her life, then bomb. She can't remember her own name. Sarah nodded, a grim look in her eyes. I've seen this play out before. Give me 48 hours. That evening, I drove back to Maple Grove. I didn't announce myself. I just walked in. Mom was in her chair by the window, watching the Toronto sky turn to charcoal. She looked thin, fragile, but as I sat beside her, something felt ... different. Mom, I whispered. Her brown eyes met mine, and for a split second, I didn't see a vacancy. I saw a spark. It's me, Douglas. Her mouth worked, a silent struggle to find a word, but then a nurse bustled in to check her vitals. The moment shattered. I drove home through the slush, my mind spinning. What was Glenn's endgame? A fake funeral to announce her death to the world, then a quiet transfer of every cent while everyone thought she was in the ground. It was as brilliant as it was demonic. The next morning, Sarah called. Douglas, you need to sit down. I pulled out a chair. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. Your brother has been very busy, Sarah said. In 8 months, he's moved $280,000 from your mother's accounts into his own. He sold her Muskoka cottage to a numbered company. I'm still tracing it, but I'd bet my license Glenn owns that company. He's maxing out her credit cards. And Douglas, the doctor who diagnosed her, Dr. James Whitmore, he and your brother were college roommates. They've been friends for 30 years. A wave of nausea hit me. So her dementia. It could be the meds. Exactly, Sarah replied. If he's over-prescribing sedatives, it mimics cognitive decline. That's not just fraud, Douglas. That's slow-motion murder. Document everything. Record him if you can. Ontario is one-party consent. I went back to the home that afternoon, but when I walked into Mom's room, the bed was empty. A nurse was stripping the sheets. Where's my mother? I asked, the panic rising in my throat. Your brother took her for a drive, she said she needed air. My blood went cold. I sat in the parking lot for 3 hours until Glenn's black Mercedes finally slid into view. He helped Mom out. Swaying on her feet, Glenn saw me and didn't even try to hide his sneer. Douglas, what are you doing here? You told me she died yesterday, Glenn, and yet here she is. He actually let, out a dry laugh. Oh, that, yeah, sorry, false alarm. Mom had a bad episode, and I panicked. You know how it is with dementia. Where did you take her today? Just a drive, he snapped, his voice hardening. I'm her POA. I make the calls, not you. You want to challenge me. Get a lawyer. He brushed past me, dragging Mom toward her room. I watched him settle her into that chair, whispering something in her ear that I couldn't catch. Then he walked away, not even glancing at me. I was standing by my car, shaking with rage, when my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I hit accept. Hello. Silence. Then, a whisper, a scratchy, desperate sound. Douglas. Yes. Who is this, Douglas? It's me. I froze. I checked the screen. A blocked number. My mother was 50 yards away in that building, unable to speak a coherent sentence. Who? It's your mother. Listen carefully. I don't have much time. Come to my room tonight, after 10. Make sure Glenn isn't here. And Douglas, ... Tell no one. The line went dead. I stood in the falling snow, staring at the phone like it was a live grenade. It was impossible. She could barely string 2 words together. And yet, that voice Evan strained and whispered was the sharp, clear-minded woman I'd known my entire life. I waited in my car until after 10 p.m., watching the facility like a sentry. Glenn's Mercedes was long gone. The night shift was Anna's skeleton crew. I used my key code, slipped through the side door, and made my way to Mom's room. She was sitting up in bed, the lights dimmed low. When I entered, she turned, and in the shadows, I saw her eyes. They weren't vacant. They were clear, focused, and completely lucid. "Close the door," she said. Her voice wasn't a mumble. It was strong. It was the voice of the woman who raised me. I shut the door, my hands trembling. "Mom, ... What? Are you okay?" She smiled that wry, sharp expression she used to give us when she caught us sneaking cookies as kids. "I'm fine, Douglas. I've been fine this whole time. But the dementia, the diagnosis, ... You didn't even know me." She took my hand. Her grip was firm. I needed to know which of my sons would actually take care of me. Not for the cottage, not for the bank account, but because they loved me. When Glenn suggested the POA, I saw an opportunity. I consulted my own lawyer, one Glenn doesn't know about, put my real assets into an irrevocable trust weeks before he got control. I only left enough in those accounts to see what he'd do. The room tilted. "You faked it to test us." I had to see who would hold my hand when I couldn't give them anything back, she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "And Douglas, ... You came 3 times a week. You talked to me even when I acted like a stranger." "Mom, he told me you were dead. The funeral is Friday." She nodded grimly. "I know. He told me today on our drive. He said I was going to have an accident. He's running out of time, and he knows it." Over the next 48 hours, we turned the tables. Robert Chen brought in the police, and we wired Mom's room with hidden cameras the size of buttons. We watched the footage in real time. I saw Glenn bring a syringe to her room Thursday night. He told her it was medication. We had it tested. Later it was a massive dose of sedatives, enough to stop her heart. "Tomorrow," Glenn had whispered on the tape, smoothing her hair. "Tomorrow, you'll finally be at peace, Mom." Friday came. Thornhill Funeral Home was packed. Glenn had gone all out flowers. A large photo of Mom from 20 years ago. A flowery obituary. I sat in the front row with Emma, watching my brother play the grieving son. At 2 p.m., Glenn stood at the podium. "Mom was an incredible woman," he said, his voice cracking with fake emotion. "She knew I was the responsible one. She wanted me to have the house, the cottage, ... everything, because she trusted me." I stood up. Every head in the room turned. "That's interesting, Glenn," I said, my voice echoing. "Want to tell everyone where Mom really is?" "Douglas, sit down," Glenn hissed, his face going white. "This isn't the time. Where's the body, Glenn?" I called the crematorium. "They don't have her." Suddenly, the back doors swung open. The room erupted in gasps and screams. Framed in the doorway was my mother. She walked down the aisle with a walker, her back straight, her eyes like flint. 2 uniformed officers followed behind her. She stopped at the podium and looked her baby boy in the eye. "Hello, son," she said clearly. "I'm not dead, but your inheritance is." Glenn's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Mom, ... You're confused, ... You're sick." "I'm not confused, Glenn. I've been recording you for 8 months. Every threat, every theft. The lead officer stepped forward. Glenn Harrison, you're under arrest for elder abuse, theft over $5,000, fraud, and attempted probate fraud. Glenn actually tried to run. He pushed past a cousin and made it 3 steps before he was tackled and handcuffed in front of his own children. Patricia stood frozen in horror. "I'm your son," Glenn shouted as they led him out. "I needed that money." Mom watched him go, tears streaming down her face. "You were my son," she whispered, "but you stopped being my child the moment you decided my life was worth less than my bank account." The fallout was total. Glenn pleaded guilty and got 5 years in prison. He lost his license, his wife, and his reputation. Dr. Whitmore lost his medical license and was barred from practice for life. Mom moved into a condo near me. She spent her final years volunteering at an elder abuse prevention center. We used the money Glenn returned to start the Helen Harrison Elder Protection Fund. She held a mug of tea wrapped in a thick wool blanket. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. She was quiet for a long time, watching the white flakes drift past the porch. "I regret that it was necessary," she said softly. "I regret that my own son was capable of such things. But Douglas... I don't regret finding out the truth. I had to know who would love me when I had nothing left to give. You gave me everything that mattered. You taught me integrity, Mom. You taught me that doing the right thing matters most when it's hard." She reached over and squeezed my hand. Her grip was her own again. "And that's why you passed the test. Not just because you visited, but because even when you thought I was gonna when you thought you were getting nothing, you fought for the truth. You protected me when I couldn't protect myself. That's what family does." She looked me in the eye, her expression as firm as the day she taught me to read. "Blood doesn't make you family, Douglas. Love does. Choice does. Showing up does. Glenn was my blood, but he stopped being family the moment he decided I was just an asset to liquidate." We sat in a comfortable, healing silence as the snow piled up on the fence. Inside, I could hear my phone buzzing and a calling from Vancouver for our weekly check-in. Life was moving forward. Mom looked at me, her eyes still sharp and clear. "You know what the saddest part is? If Glenn had just asked... if he'd been honest about his financial problems, I would have helped him. Not by enabling his poor choices, but I would have helped. Instead, he chose to steal. He chose to treat me like I was already dead, and that choice cost him everything." I didn't have an answer for that. I just held her hand. This remarkable woman had taught me more about strength and dignity in this past year than in the 60 before it. She had survived betrayal by her own son, orchestrated her own rescue, and came out the other side determined to save others from the same fate. That's the thing about real family. It isn't about inheritance. It's about fighting for what's right, even when it means standing against your own brother. Len made his choices. He chose greed, and he's paying the price not just in a prison cell, but in the loss of his wife, his children's respect, and his mother's love. As for me, I got something far more valuable than any cottage in Moscow. I got more years with my mother, real years, where we could laugh and heal. I got the peace of knowing that when I was tested, I chose love over dollars. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. True family protects the vulnerable. And sometimes, the bravest thing an 85-year-old woman can do is pretend to be helpless, just to find out who will actually help. That's the legacy of Helen Harrison, my mother, my hero. The woman who taught me that real love shows up even when there's absolutely nothing to gain. The story of the Harrison family is a warning to us all. If you found strength in Douglas and Helen's journey, hit that like button and subscribe for more grandpa stories about justice and family.
Have you ever had to choose between blood and integrity? Drop a comment below and share your story. We're building a community that protects our seniors. Write amen if you believe the truth always comes to light. Until next time, stay vigilant.